Mr. Doug Perlman, the who's who in the world of sports. He is the chief CEO of Sports Media Advisors, and also what I really like him is named by Sporting News as one of the 100 most powerful people in sports, and also being named 40 under 40 3 times, earning him a spot in the Hall of Fame. Wow. A really great guy, and I'm so happy to bring on the clubhouse. Doug Perlman, welcome to the clubhouse.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
Nice.
So how are we holding up in the home office?
We're doing okay. Thanks for asking. I think anytime anybody answers that question now, you have to say all things considered, right? But all things considered, we're doing all right here at our home office in Connecticut with my wife and our 3 teenage boys.
There you go.
So, Doug, I would say that Mark gave you a nice introduction, but I think in terms of you being well known in the sports industry would really be more on the sports business side, right? I mean, obviously. So why don't you give us a little backgrounder of yourself in terms of where you've been? Obviously, we can read your bio, but just give us a little elevator of what Doug Perlman's all about.
Yeah, sure. So I founded our firm, which is called Sports Media Advisors, a little over 10 years ago. And we do all sorts of consulting and advisory work in the sports media space, and came to that thesis really in large part of my background. I was a lawyer for a couple of years at Proskauer, which you all know represents all the leagues, and then moved over after just a couple of years to the NHL, and went there to be a lawyer. But right after I got there, the first digital deals started coming through, and I sort of saw digital was going to change the world. So asked to move over to the media side and ended up running the NHL's TV and digital business for about 10 years. And then I went to IMG, and I was president of IMG Media. And then when I left there, I started the firm. And as I said, we do all sorts of consulting work in the space. We advise lots of leagues and teams and other properties on their media business. And as you all know, that world is changing every day. So we're trying to help people kind of see where things are going, understand the future a little bit. We also help them negotiate their TV and media contracts. And then we also work with people that are trying to build sports-related businesses. So any sort of company that's looking to grow a business in the space will kind of help them navigate the sports landscape. And then we work with investors in the space as well, people that are looking to buy, teams or other properties. They want to get our perspective on, again, where the world's headed, what kind of projections are realistic. So, sorry, that's a long-winded answer to start the interview, but that's what we do and kind of how we got here.
All right, well, I have a question. You went to Duke, and then you had your law school at Virginia. Mm-hmm. 2 great schools. But what made you come? What made you go to sports? What was your interest in the world of sports?
So, I've always loved sports. I was an athlete growing up here in Westport. Always loved sports. Always watched and enjoyed all kinds of sports. Never really gave a ton of thought to pursuing a career in sports, and never really kind of had a great sense of what that might look like. But then when I was at Virginia for law school, as you said, I actually took a class in intellectual property. So, copyright, trademark, the law of rights. And I really found it fascinating, and I got real into it. And that's when I started to think about kind of the career path that might put me on. And I started to focus on, sports and or entertainment, and started to sort of really get the sense that so much of the business of sports is all about rights and who controls them and how you license them and sell them, et cetera. So that's when I started to think I could combine that interest with my passion for sports and pursue a career. And as I said, went to Proskauer and then followed the path I described.
That's very cool. So as your company represents so many of the sports that we all enjoy watching, but as sports slowly do return to venues, what do you think about the fact that there'll be no fans?
It's a great question. It's the kind of thing that, I'm talking about every day throughout the day with all kinds of folks from different vantage points within the industry. I think, as Dave mentioned at the top of the show, we're also starved for sports. And I think right now, everybody's thrilled to be able to watch anything, even if there are no fans there. So, this past weekend, you saw NASCAR come back in a real strong way, which was terrific. You saw the golf event over in Germany. The Bundesliga was back. So I think for now, everybody is, thrilled to be able to see any kind of sports, even if there are no fans. I think there's no question it's not the same kind of experience, right? It's a whole lot more fun to see a packed house and the crowd reacting. But I think, for now, we'll sort of take it. And I do think it also varies from sport to sport. I think certain sports will miss that experience more. And, it's really interesting. There's all sorts of conversations going on now among production folks about just what do you do about that, right? How do you frame the shot? Should you bring in crowd noise to make it seem like there's no, noise now? It's sort of like the old laugh track. In certain countries, they're putting fake fans in the crowd to make it look like there are crowds in the seats. And I've even heard that in some places they're letting people send in their pictures and they're putting their faces on the dummies in the crowd for like $25 that they then give to charity. So, times like these, people need to get creative, and a lot of people are. So again, I think the short answer is I'd rather see fans in the seats, but I'm awful happy to see sports being played.
I thought, by the way, Fox's production of NASCAR was actually outstanding. And I'm not a huge NASCAR watcher, Doug, but I thought it was really well done. And guys, I think there should be a row of clubhouse spaces in one of these facilities. I don't know. What do you think?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and I agree with you. The NASCAR folks and Fox, they did an incredible job. I mean, the NASCAR people put so much time into figuring out the logistics of how to, make that race happen and ensure that everybody would be safe and that the race would come off without a hitch. And they did it with a, far reduced group of people that were there at the track. And then Fox was incredibly creative in how they pulled off that production with almost everyone doing it remotely. And I agree with you. I thought it came off really well. And the numbers were really strong. I think the TV ratings were very strong. I think obviously NASCAR fans were dying to see racing back. And then a lot of people like yourself that may be more casual fans, tuned in because, again, they were excited to see sports back.
Doug, where do you see this going long term in terms of sports in general? I mean, is this going to change the landscape? Are the seasons going to change? Obviously, we're seeing a lot, especially in the college athletics world, a lot of colleges are deciding to cut sports, which I think is foolhardy, but it just, it's always the first cut, right, or the athletics department. But where do you see this going long term?
I think I could sort of answer that in a lot of different ways. So, if I take it in a direction that you were and miss something that you were looking for, I'm happy to kind of come back to it. But I think, sort of in terms at a real high level, I think there'll probably be a few phases in terms of the return, right? I think as we were just talking about, in the short term, we're going to see events without fans, but with media coverage. And I think, again, a lot of people are going to be excited to be able to watch media coverage of the sports that they love. And then I think, as the world evolves and thinking evolves and treatments evolve, there'll be stadiums and arenas that people will be able to attend, but they're going to look and feel different, right? There may be less people. There may be a certain amount of seats in between people. You'll be able to sit with your family and then be surrounded by sort of a safe space. They've talked about your ticket will have a time when you can show up at the arena. They'll take your temperature as you come in. There may be no concessions. There may be contactless concessions. So I think that'll be sort of, phase two, if you will. I know we're all a little tired hearing about phases, but that'll be sort of phase two, if you will, about in terms of the way that sports will evolve. And then I really do believe that once a vaccine is on the scene, and I do believe that will happen, and it seems to be that people are confident that it's more a question of when and not if, I really think the world will look largely like it has in the past. Some people, aren't as optimistic about that as I am, but I am an optimist by nature. And I really think that, once that's in place, people will come around and the world will look very similar, not identical. People will take precautions. They'll be a little more cautious. That's probably a good thing for a lot of reasons. But I do think it will come back. And I'm 100% certain that the things that sort of under the underpinnings of the industry that we work in are definitely never going to go away. The passion that fans have and the interest that they have is always going to be there. And so, I'm certainly confident of that.
Thank you.
We're sports starved, though, right, Doug? I mean, even and with things coming up. So this past weekend, I watched on ESPN the Cornhole Championships.
Yeah.
throwing, and there was like one referee masked, and obviously the production guys, and it was entertaining for like 3 hours. And I sat there and had my soft drink or two, and then enjoyed that. But I want to lead into that. Did you see The Last Dance, and your thoughts on the Michael Jordan? Because those numbers shot to the roof, and I wondered if you had any thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, I saw the Cornhole Championships and The Last Dance, so I'm familiar with both. Yeah, I'm familiar with both, and I enjoyed both. Yeah, no, The Last Dance was terrific. They did such a great job. I actually watched every episode with my family as they came on Sunday night, which was kind of a neat thing for America to kind of return to that appointment viewing and that family viewing and that sort of shared experience that you don't really find very often anymore. So we watched The Last Dance, and I thought it was terrific. I had heard about the fact that footage existed for years, and that NBA Productions had been able to follow Michael, and that it just took so long to for them to get him to agree to come on board and finish that production. So again, I'd heard about it for years, been looking forward to it for a long time, and it didn't disappoint. I thought it was terrific. Some incredible footage, a lot of great insights, and it's sort of been interesting too in this world of where we don't have a lot of live sports to follow and talk about, all of the commentary coming out of it, right? How some of his teammates have reacted, I think, has been really interesting. So I really enjoyed it, and again found some of the commentary around it really interesting as well. And that's coming from a Duke guy.
Good point.
Well, here's a quick question. Speaking of the Duke guy, so Syracuse, as we've talked in our pre-production meeting, so Syracuse, they did a nice thing on Facebook Live a few weeks back when we won our only championship. I know, but I had to say it out loud. But what they did is they brought everybody back, and they showed CBS Sports Network was airing it live, and they had Boeheim, they had Mello, they had and it was very well done. What do you think of those kind of programming that we're trying to do now? As Duke or and your clients, or they had the Masters on when Tiger won and when Phil won. Would they bring the guy back and they say, "Hey, take a look at the shot"? I think that's pretty fun stuff while we're waiting for the real stuff to come back.
I agree. I think some of it is more well done than others, but I think when they get it right, and it's the right kind of event and the right kind of approach with talent or coaches and athletes that interest you, I think that can be a lot of fun. And I think the whole industry has had to get creative, as we said. So those kind of classic games and interviews and perspective and commentary, I think people have really enjoyed. In all the leagues and the properties, they're constantly thinking about, again, how to keep those fans engaged during a time like this. So whether it's, telecasts like that, whether it's social media initiatives, whether it's some of the eSports executions that you've seen where people have gotten more engaged with that, during this period of time, I think, I guess I've been a little bit surprised by how much of that content I've really enjoyed. And I hear from so many people they've really enjoyed.
That's very true. Rob, should we take a quick break and then come back and finish up with Doug? Because I would love to keep him on for a little bit longer if he has time.
We sure can do that.
Yeah, I like that idea as well. So that's what we'll do. We'll take a break here on the Clubhouse on a Wednesday night on 1490 AM, 105.5 FM, and WGCH.com anywhere.
When they named you, one of the 100 most powerful people in sports, I know that's obviously a tremendous honor, but what did you think? I mean, were you like, holy cow, it's cool.
Yeah. No, it's, it was a number of years ago now, I have to admit, but it was, it was a bit overwhelming and a bit surprising. And, and you sort of look at some of the other names that were on the list, and it was quite humbling. So, no, that was a really, really neat thing. And I actually had no idea it was coming. It caught me by surprise, which made it even a little bit nicer.
Doug, you mentioned something earlier, and I want to go back to it because it's something I never saw really coming, having worked in the industry myself for many years, and that's eSports.
Mm-hmm.
Esports is now, at least I just saw an article today, like a $200 billion industry. Colleges are getting into the game. They're forming teams. Where do you see that going? And is this this crisis, this predicament we're in now, is that going to now enhance this whole esports world?
I think you're already starting to see it, the esports world benefit from everything that's happening out there. And I think it's a combination of things. It's, obviously people, as we've all said, they're sort of starved for competition, starved for sports. So they're trying out new things that they might not otherwise watch. And I think esports has definitely been a beneficiary of that, because again, it's one of the sports that you can put on safely. People don't need to be within range of each other. So some of the esports that already existed are seeing a real surge in their audience. And then you're also seeing some new creative esports executions, right? Like what you saw with NASCAR and some of the other auto racing circuits, where they put on those iRace events, which I thought were just amazing, where they had, current drivers competing against each other in what were incredibly lifelike racetracks. And then they actually got the Fox crew to call the races. It was pretty amazing, and put them on television, and they did pretty nice numbers. So I think there's no question that everything that's happening is going to inure to the benefit of what was already a really fast-growing segment of the industry.
Where are you to learn more about your company, Sports Media Advisors? And more importantly is, in where Dave and I work in Manhattanville, what would you tell our audience member who might be looking for a job in the sports marketplace? Any suggestions for that?
Sure. So anybody who's interested in learning more about our firm, probably the best place to start would be our website at sportsmediaadvisors.com. We have what's hopefully a pretty good overview of our team and what we do and some of the work that we've done. And in terms of, what I'd say to young people, actually, I talk to young folks all the time who are interested in careers in sports. It's something I really enjoy doing. And, one of the things that I tell them, and it sort of relates back to your first question about, kind of how I came to approach a career in sports, is I meet lots and lots of young people who say, I'm passionate about sports and I'd love to combine my passion for sports with my career. And that's great. And that's where I was when I was their age. But what I always will tell them is you really want to sort of try to take the next step and try to find an area within the sports industry that interests you, where the substance of the subject matter interests you, because loving a sport is not going to carry you through a whole career. At the end of the day, it's a career, it's a business, it's a job. So whether it's sponsorship sales or licensing or finance or legal or media, as in my case, you really want to enjoy the subject matter and the substance of what you do, in addition to having the passion for sports. And don't get me wrong, it's an awesome industry to work in, and it is exciting to be around the industry and the events and the people, etc. But I try to kind of encourage young people to really try to find a subject matter within the industry that interests them. And I do also tell them, they don't have to find it right away. I mean, I certainly, again, they're far ahead of where I was when I was their age, but at least I encourage them to start thinking that way and, reading the trades and taking the kinds of classes that Dave offers to try to really get a sense of, the substance of the subject matter in addition to the attractiveness of the sport.
Wow. We could do another half an hour. Shall we just bump the other guests and do that? Is that okay or no? I guess we really can't do that. But I'm going to thank you so much, Doug Perlman. Thank you so very much. Very honored to chat with you, and you're welcome back to the clubhouse anytime.
I appreciate it. It was a lot of fun. Thank you. It was a lot of fun. I'm happy to do it.